The final stage of the 2021 season has been great. Not only has the gameplay been really fun to watch, but every team is putting it all on the table as each team looks to capitalize on their last chance this season to make an impact. Sit back and relax as we run through a week that gifted us with some big matches between titans of regions, along with some teams looking to make a late push up those overall yearly standings. Thanks as usual to everyone who stopped by, watched the videos, or just generally shown support. I can't thank you enough for helping grow this channel this season. Hit the like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're feeling this type of content and want more on your timeline, and feel free to share the vid with a friend if you think they will find it interesting also. Now, let's get straight into the games. Starting off with North America, and in the NAL, it was Soniqs this week who were able to stop Canadians' dream return to competing, as 2 wins for DarkZero was as far as their current win streak would go, with the Susquehanna Soniqs beating them 7-4. I was expecting this to be a good game for the Soniqs for 2 reasons. The first more straightforward reason would be that Soniqs to me have always been a very sharp team on the reworked Chalet, and we've seen some great performances from them this season on that map, even up to as recently as week 1 of stage 3 where they were clinical in a win against Astralis. And the second reason would be that I know that their loss to Exet would have really hurt them. Soniqs are a team that will tell you yourself that they are loud and like to dish out the banter, so keeping it 100, being the first team in ages to hand over points to a team that had essentially been the punching bag of NAL for the majority of the season, would have been a stinger and embarrassed them. And you know with how competitive the Soniqs are, that they were doing everything in the week between the games in their scrims, team meetings and analysis to put right what fundamentally went wrong against Exet. And Soniqs did, looking much more like their normal selves here, starting with a decent 2-4 half on attack, but putting the pressure on them to win out their defenses, as we know that attacking rounds are a lot easier to collect on Chalet than other maps. DZ weren't able to keep the lead for very long. Soniqs completely shut down their supply of rounds and collected every single following round for themselves. A few big multi-kills and clutches from Kansan, along with an overall good mix of disruption around the map and patience not to overextend from Soniqs, saw them easily take the full 3 points from DZ in a 7-4 win. But for me, the big game this week in NAL was Oxygen Esports versus Spacestation Gaming, and the other unbeaten team would stop this playday as Spacestation Gaming took down Oxygen Esports 7-5 in a really interesting game. These two teams are playing at such a good level right now, and it was nice to see their two styles match up well and lead to a great fight between them. Honestly, both teams had positives and negatives in this game, but looking at the scoreboard, you could see it was one of those games where a crazy fragging performance from 1 or 2 players is unable to be matched by the opposing team and leave you in a position unable to hold the map control or power positions you need without being shut down by the entries. 2 of SSG's most influential players, Faults and Rampy, were taking what they wanted, the highlight definitely being back-to-back 4Ks from Faults on Sophia, ending at a +6 on entry and 15 kills, backed by 12 from Rampy. Despite OXG doing well on attack with 3 rounds and keeping it close to 5-5, their struggles throughout the game had really started to affect them as their inability to slow down SSG from taking the map control hurt them, and they slowly got isolated or were unable to flank as SSG suffocated Oxygen from moving in and around the site. Space Station cut their air supply to Oxygen as they found the final round with a gym attack, Rampy and an unusually quiet Hot and Cold in a 2v3, somehow finding the round after good game sense and intel reaction from Rampy to kill the flanking OXG player, and Hot and Cold getting the last laugh with a double he didn't even need Rampy's help for. Really great game to watch, and you could see on the player cams how much a clutch like that meant for SSG. And hey, that's what you get when you sign players like Hot and Cold for the big bucks. Even in a quiet game, he can produce a moment of magic to secure the game and avoid the risk and guaranteed loss of points of going to overtime. And swiftly heading over to Europe, it was time for us to run back one of my favourite series from the last 2 seasons after our all-European semi-finals at the Mexico Major between BDS and Team Empire. And we headed to Bank where BDS ran off with the cash in a great 7-3 win. The game kicked off with some nice variety, as we saw Shaiko play someone other than Yana, collecting a 3k in round 1 on the up-and-coming Finca, an operator we've seen a lot more than usual in this 3rd stage. Shaiko continued to pick up kills on Finca, collecting a 4-2 attacking half, and I always say with Shaiko that when he plays with other ops than his standard Yana or Ashe in the pass, he can completely catch the other team off guard, as your movement and positioning is different with every operator, and therefore means it's harder for the opposition to be able to completely hard counter your default push. I remember saying a similar thing in my first Pro League Roundup vid in Stage 1, where Shaiko was playing Ace on Clubhouse and having good effect as a sort of flex secondary hard breach, reminiscent of how he used to be great with the holo on Hibana. Joystick attempted the thinker himself, but it wasn't nearly as effective as unfortunately for Empire, they weren't able to find a single round for the rest of the game. BDS holding down the site well, and a 3k from Rafał in the final round finished the game up for them 7-2. It might seem unfair to say, but with some other top teams in EUL and other regions, a result like this might worry me about the rest of the team's stage and hopes in the upcoming November major. But with Empire, they have earned the right for the benefit of the doubt, as we've seen Empire in this position a few times this season, where they have either botched the beginning or the whole of a stage and still managed to get the business done on LAN, all sitting next to each other on one ping. But still, I've mentioned before that I think it's really important mentally for your belief that you have a good domestic stage before an international event. The proof being in the pudding for Empire, who did relatively well at SI after a 9th place finish in Stage 1, but did even better at the major, reaching the finals after a top place finish in Stage 2. So I hope Empire can kick on from here like they did last stage and can do something again as incredible as going flawless for the rest of the stage. A tough ask, but they've proved it's possible in Stage 2. What do you guys think the future holds for Empire? Let me know in the comments down below. And secondly, G2's woes continued as we saw Virtus.pro finally able to come back from 1-5 down in a great game in regulation and avoiding dropping points in overtime, coming against an unlikely victim of G2 esports. G2 started strong with a 5-1 defense on Cafe, and despite VP doing a decent job with early aggression and getting the opening pick, G2 did great even in their second half to trade out those kills instantly and keep themselves in the round. But as VP switched to defense, they started to shine and pick up kills, and they won all 6 of their attacks in a crazy half, G2 just struggling to keep up, as we know about the gun skill players like Milon and Ras can have on their day. Consequently for G2, nobody but Virtue was even able to go positive in KD, along with the whole team ending up at a max of 0 for entry KD. I don't think G2 are a crutch team, and there has to be consideration that the players are still gelling, but I do feel that Citizen is a big deciding factor in most games they play. Citizen is one of those few players in the world that can elevate a good team to one of the best in their region, as he can literally take a whole match into his own hands, and on the flip side, if he struggles like he did in this game, the rest of the 4 players can struggle to make up the difference if all 5 opposition players are having successful gunfights. Not that the whole G2 team isn't talented, but Citizen really is one of the best players in the world, and in almost any sport or esport, regardless of the level of teamwork needed, having one of the best players in the world can put your team on a whole different level. Good to see Virtus.pro pick up a win against a strong team like G2, as I feel like Virtus.pro have been a bit of a sleeping giant for a while. And finally, over to Brazil, MIBR looked for a return to form after losing to FaZe last week. Meanwhile, Team 1 were hoping to continue their stomping run after they took apart NIP 7-0 in their last match. Team 1 took map control well on a big map like Bank, with good time management, but their time management became an issue once they had that control, and stalling out and not droning site properly cost them, as MIBR found their second defense as Fools went undroned on site and got 2 easy kills on the planter and 1 other as they ran past him hiding in sight. Team 1 adjusted though and used the extra time to burn plant denial utility with plant attempts before they ran out of time to burn it and lost from a smoke canister or a yokai blast, now evening the score to 2-2. Alamar was doing what he does, making space, as he's been one of the more consistent Nook players in recent weeks, with so many impactful multi-kills in the last few games. The trend continuing here, as he was giving his team the advantage in those situations where the round is a 50-50 on who will take it. But MIBR are a smart team, and they didn't get caught off guard again by Alamar, this time being much more effective with their offsite holds and ending the half at 3 apiece for both teams. The game stayed close, neck and neck for another 2 rounds, but after a flawless attack from MIBR, they continued to grow into the game with another really good objective-based round, scanning out the best plant position and then holding the superior angles to confidently deny the retake from Team 1. MIBR collected 3 strong rounds in this time, only losing 1 throughout that, and now sat at 6-5, putting the pressure on Team 1's last chance on defense in regulation to salvage some points. And Team 1 did by the skin of their teeth, Alamar playing spoilers to MIBR, as a slight misplay with the flank watch from Reduct allowed Alamar to flank down blue stairs and kill the planter of Fools on Thermite, keeping his team in the game, now at 6-6. MIBR started on attack again, and despite it being Bank, I think this was okay for them as they looked slightly more convincing than Team 1 on their attacks, so it didn't feel like Team 1 having the defense meant they were nailed on to win. Unfortunately for MIBR though, they fell apart in the first OT attack, as they just didn't make any significant indent into Team 1's defensive hold, as we saw fools sprinting across the map with 20 seconds left to be in a position to plant, with not near enough map control established from the rest of the team, with Team 1 easily mopping up the MIBR players scrambling to cover the plant. And at 7-6 for Team 1, they had their own attacking problems, as despite having better map control than MIBR had in the previous round, they were much more disjointed and were relying on their individual players to win their 1v1s and weren't set up well for trades, losing the round and putting us at max OT with MIBR needing to attack successfully onto the open area bomb site. The MVP of the Mexico Major, Levy, had a quiet game so far, but he brought out the impact when it mattered most, as his commitment to the Mozzie and the Roni this game finally paid off, as he collected a nice triple with some beautiful shots within. And despite a messy round from MIBR and overall from both teams this game, you sometimes just need a few players to dig in and get things done, Alamau and Lagonis being the ones to do that for Team 1, as they just about defeated MIBR 8-7. And on day 2, we saw another one of the big matches of the week, as NIP hoped to continue their climb back to form and make it 3 wins in a row, with their first big challenge being against FaZe, a team they historically often get the edge over. NIP tried a mixture of measured roams where they fall back at a minute and a half and outright turtle setups, but neither were working too effectively, as they were either getting cut off on rotates around the map or were being countered and suffocated with their hold as FaZe hit sides of the site with least resistance. We found ourselves at a 4-2 attacking half for FaZe after NIP salvaged the final round of the first half, but transitioning to defense, NIP continued to lack that edge as none of their big fraggers were able to put a dent in the game anywhere near as much as the electric FaZe players like SYBSCRIBE were. Despite playing in a confident manner all throughout the game and getting in FaZe's faces where they felt it was the right time to, overall they weren't seeing much net success, as a lot of the time FaZe were able to get the direct trade or a trade somewhere else on the map not much time after. NIP started to lose concentration on attack as FaZe secured match point after catching NIP unaware with a few kills and ultimately locking down the dorm site, and NIP managed to just about stay in the game on FaZe's first match point. Despite NIP getting a clean entry, they gave it up with another flank they weren't expecting, but Julio saved them with a big round on Twitch and kept NIP in the game for another round. This time though, it wasn't enough, as Psycho took the Monty after the success they'd found with it over Black Dragons on the same site, but it was only relatively successful, as despite Monty successfully clearing Freezer and finding a kill, Astro popped up with the Roni with a double kill, combined with a heartbreaking TK from Muzi, left Muzi in a 1v3, which was the end of the road for NIP, as FaZe completed a great game and secured a 7-3 win. And those were my favourite matches from week 3. A week filled with chock-a-block bangers and the big dogs facing up against each other. The storylines are really starting to build for the November Major now, as you can just feel some teams are really starting to heat up and take every challenge they face into their stride. Meanwhile, some other teams have struggled massively to get going this stage, and they will need to dust themselves off and start finding convincing results before it's too late and their opportunity to succeed this season has passed. Hit the like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments down below what teams you think are in the right form to have success in the Pro League Finals and the upcoming November Major. I'll be down there reading your comments and giving my 2 cents too, so I look forward to what you all have to say. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying week 4, another week of great games might I add, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.